We have big news. We have exciting news for you. Tell them what it is, Serena.
We are super excited to announce that we are starting our first membership this January 2024.
Yay! Membership.
So we're excited to let you know that we will be hosting a monthly membership where when you join, you will be
With us live in a Zoom room once a month for a workshop like we just hosted. It's going to be a workshop like that, one topic each month, a different topic. You might even help us come up with the following month's topic from inside our membership. Super excited to meet you. It was so fun meeting a few of you in our inaugural workshop. So we're really looking forward to that.
And when you are a member, you will also be receiving a monthly newsletter where I'm going to be a little more intimate and I'll be sharing the things that are working and the things that aren't working for me.
Yeah, like taking a tool that you've learned from the podcast and how you're implementing it and how well that worked, or maybe if it didn't work. And then Amma can put in my 2 bits worth. We'll see how that goes. But a membership newsletter and a membership live Zoom room workshop starting in January 2024. Can sign up through our Patreon link in the show notes. Yeah.
Yes, everything will be in the show notes, and we can't wait to see you there, listeners.
We can't wait. Yay.
Hey mamas, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. And today, Amma and I are having a conversation on the difference between consequences and punishments. I love this conversation because I feel like there can be a thin line between the two. And as a nurturing parent, I know I don't want to use punishments. Maybe I don't even know why punishments are bad, but Amma will shed some light on why we don't want to use punishments, what's actually happening when we do use punishments, and how we can try to do better. But before we dive into that conversation, we wanted to share some exciting news. Since you mamas have been reaching out and asking more questions and asking for advice, we feel like we would be helping more mamas by sharing those questions because we know that we're not the only ones going through these struggles. So every last Tuesday of the month, our last episode of each month will be a listener Q&A. And if you have any questions and would like to submit something that you're struggling with, you can email us at thenurturingparent.pod@gmail.com. So if you'd like to submit a question or you're struggling with something right now, mama, and you would like to hear your question on the episode, please submit it to thenurturingparent.pod@gmail.com. Thank you, mamas. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for joining us each week. We really appreciate you and we love having you here with us. So let's dive into it.
Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. Do you want to end the constant battles for bath time? Do you find yourself emotionally exhausted at the end of the day? Do you wake up with big hopes for a smooth day of fun with your little ones, only to face an early morning meltdown because you peeled their banana the wrong way?
Silly you.
Silly you.
Hey, I'm Serena. I am a mama of 2 little ones, and as a new mama, I constantly questioned myself. I wanted to make sure I was raising respectful kids while also building a strong bond with them. But I discovered that I had to unlearn my ideas that punishment was the way. With Lisa's encouragement, I've been practicing a respectful and gentle parenting approach, which is strengthening our bond as a family.
And hi, I'm Lisa. Amma means grandmother in Icelandic. I am a mama and an Amma. And I have over 40 years of experience in childcare and parent coaching. And I am so excited to share the knowledge I've gained over these years with you.
Together in this podcast, each week we will explore some easy to implement skills you can add to your parenting tool belt to help you create a happy, thriving family. All right, Amma. So today I would like to learn and understand what the difference between consequences and punishments are, because I feel like there is a thin line when consequences can turn into punishments. especially while we're parenting and trying to get what we want from our kids. And we don't use punishments as nurturing parents. So I would just kind of like to learn where is that thin line and what that looks like and have a better understanding of consequences versus punishments.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent topic. Oh, so good. Okay. What is the difference? I'm going to start with what are punishments? What is a punishment? And then we can move into what are consequences. And then you'll see what the differences are. And then we could use an example out of your own life and maybe give our listeners some specific kind of like what's happening and how do we create this as a consequence, or how is it a consequence or a natural consequence, and how do we avoid making it into a punishment.
Yes, because
Okay.
we want our kids to know that there are natural consequences to things, right? We want them to.
Yeah, and right there I'm going to say our kids will learn that.
Yeah.
Because natural consequences, quote unquote, are natural. If you spill, oh, okay, here's a really obvious one. If you lick your ice cream and you lick it so hard that the ice cream falls off the cone, the consequence is you just lost your ice cream. Right? So we can use that analogy for anything that has a natural consequence. And so they will learn. And it's not something that we need to necessarily teach them. But you'll see when I get into talking about what is a consequence, and and you will see how we can create consequences or point to consequences that might happen. If you lick that ice cream, if you keep licking it so fast and you push your mouth so hard on it, it might fall on the ground. That's one of the things, is letting them know what a consequence might be, because their brain, their 2-year-old brain, might not know what happens to ice cream when we, eat it too enthusiastically.
Even us adults might
Right?
not know. Just kidding.
Well, it's true. All right. So that's one thing there. But let's have a look. What defines what makes a punishment a punishment? A punishment is something that focuses on the negative aspects of what happened or didn't happen. A punishment is often bigger and is unrelated to the infraction, so the problem behavior. It does not relate to the behavior. This is a problem with punishments. They're arbitrary. Punishments, often a parent or a caregiver will use a punitive tone of voice, either anger, or they may shame or blame the child. They often will attack the character. You are so bad. You are not going to, you just spilled the milk all over the table. That's it. You must leave the table. You're not going to finish your dinner. That's a punishment. You've got the tone of voice, you've got shaming, you've got blaming, you've got attacking the character of the child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll come back to that example when I get into the consequence portion. But for now, let's stick with punishment. There is strong disapproval, and not only of the behavior or of what happened, but of the child themselves. Strong disapproval. The child can feel humiliated. I know you have told us, Serena, that you grew up with punishment. Do you remember feelings of humiliation or
Definitely.
feeling shame, feeling blamed, all
embarrassed?
Those
Yes.
right.
All of those things.
Yeah. Punishment creates a power struggle because it's arbitrary. the brain in the child shifts to focusing on guilt or embarrassment or shame or that disapproval, that humiliation. And it does not, it's not able to look at solution. It's not able to look at how to make amends, that brain, because the brain shuts down, that frontal cortex shuts down. There is more often anger that develops inside or resentment or those kinds of emotions. So it's not like you're teaching, I'm going to teach you a lesson. You've spilled your milk again. You're not having the rest of your dinner. No, a young child isn't going to put those two things together. They're maybe just being awkward in their body. They may be too excited or invigorated in their expressions at the dinner table. Whatever it is that's causing that milk to spill is most likely an age behavioral problem that's happening. And if it's an acting out, of course, then we need to look at all the different layers of what might be going on.
Yeah, so this actually happened the other night. My niece was over and she accidentally dropped her food on the floor and
Mm-hmm.
she automatically started crying. And now that you explain that, I see she started crying because of the shame, the guilt. It wasn't that she lost her dinner, it was that either she knew that she was about to get probably yelled at or punished because an accident happened, and that
Mm.
this is why we don't want to punish, and that's exactly why we don't use punishment as nurturing parents, because before I embarked on this journey with you, I would have said they need to learn punishment, but this is what happened. Now that I see this is what happens
Mm-hmm.
is they have those reactions, and the shame. I remember the shame so strongly when I would get
Mm-hmm.
punished when I was younger. And
Mm-hmm.
if it were looked at with a solution based approach, it's, oh, it fell. Okay, we can pick it up and it's fine. It was an accident. And,
Yeah.
but I was just seeing that all play out as you were
Mm-hmm.
explaining it. And it all makes so much more sense now.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was one of my
It's a
questions. Why don't we punish? Feel it brings up the shame and the embarrassment, and
and it causes disconnection. It
mm-hmm.
creates distance between parent and child. And as nurturing parents, we are continually wanting to foster that connection, to build that connection, to re-establish that connection if it's been lost for some reason, right? So that's a perfect example. Exactly. Um, so and it's a perfect segue. Let's move into a consequence and what that looks like. So rather than my made up spilled milk, let's use your family member's dropped dinner on the floor. Um, Number one, consequences come from a place of connection. So punishment causes disconnection. Consequences stem from that foundation of connection that we've built. And they are directly related to the behavior. So I am going to go back to my spilled milk for a minute. If you're a family that has low income and one glass of milk each is all that your children can get, as an example, then the consequence of spilling that milk is that you don't get another glass of milk. The consequence of dropping the plate of food on the floor is that food now needs to go in the garbage. And you can include the child in helping to make that happen. So a consequence always needs to be age and stage appropriate. Okay. If that's 2-year-old who's dropped their plate and food is spilled on the floor, then the parent needs to come in and say, oh, it can be upsetting when food drops, when we have an accident and we drop our plate. It happens. So acknowledging their upset, letting them know that it just sometimes it happens. We don't try to drop things, right? So letting them know that it's normal and it does happen sometimes, and that they're not in trouble, even if you are that low income family and that plate of food was precious. It's so important not to shame and blame in that moment. So that 2-year-old is going to need some help. I'm going to get the broom and dustpan. And if you could hold the dustpan for me right there, right beside that pile of food, Mama's going to sweep it up onto there. And then we can put it in the garbage can together. So it needs to be age and stage appropriate. If it's a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old or whatever, then, oh, looks like a broom and dustpan is needed. So they can do more of the writing what happened, the making amends of the situation that happened as they get older. And they may still be upset about it. You feel clumsy when you drop something, and you might feel a bit of shame, even though you're not being attacked or blamed, by adults in the room at that moment. But if you have any history of that, then you might feel that sense of shame anyway, or humiliation. And even if you've never been shamed or blamed, you could still feel humiliated if you dropped your whole plate of food on the floor, as an older child especially. You want to engage a child in how we can fix the problem. And that gives a child an opportunity to feel accountable for making it better, for correcting what went wrong, right? It gives them an opportunity to, like I said, to make amends. And it addresses why the behavior didn't work. So consequences generally look at what happened and what naturally comes from that happening. The plate got dropped. The food now needs to go in the garbage. That's the consequence. If the child was running and they'd been asked not to run with their plate of food, here's the consequence of running while you carried your plate. Running and carrying things don't usually go together, right? And again, you don't have to blame the child, but if it's, again, a 2-year-old may, depending on your 2-year-old or your 3-year-old, may be able to come up with, what are we going to do about this situation? We need to get the broom, Mama. Some 2 and 3-year-olds will be able to articulate that, right? A 7-year-old definitely could articulate that. So giving them the opportunity to, like that, well, what you said earlier about how we want to teach them consequences. You need to walk while you're carrying your plate. Don't run. You need to walk while you're carrying your plate. Oh, look, the plate fell. I mean, it's a classic consequence. We don't need to teach them that because they just learned that, right?
Also, aside from the consequence being throwing the food out, the consequence is also we need to clean up the food and the time that it takes. And that's just something that they're going to learn first. If you do pull out the punishment, or you resort because you're frustrated, you were cooking dinner and you finally all get to the table and then the food spills and you just lash out and yell, and then they're crying, they're upset, they're feeling these feelings of shame and guilt and embarrassment, so they're gonna cry, and then why are you crying? Then it just falls into this where nobody's gonna get the outcome that they want, which is cleaned up food and back at the table sitting to eat. It's gonna just end in crying, upset feelings, frustration on both ends, and
anger, resentment, all the rest.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And, a great point, you've just finished making this whole meal. You're just towards the end of your day and you're exhausted. And all you really want to do is sit down at the table and enjoy a meal. Just give me like 10 minutes, even, it's like, oh my gosh, now I have to get up, get the frickin' broom and dustpan and come over here and help this toddler tidy up this mess. And yeah, that is actually what needs to happen. And the thing is that they, most of the time, they're not trying to be quote unquote bad.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't try to drop their plate full of food. They didn't try to knock over that glass of milk. If they're looking you straight in the eye and letting go of their plate or knocking over their glass, that's a different conversation for us to have. But, for the most part, these are accidents that happen. And for us to bring you can be frustrated. You can say, oh my gosh, okay, let's deal with this, and you're going to have to pull that energy up from the depths of the end of your day, and you're going to have to do what there needs to be done, where you have to rise above your knee-jerk reaction of, I can't believe you just did that. Go away from the table. I can't even talk to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was because the child was running or rushing with that plate and you had told them, maybe this is even an ongoing problem that happens with this particular child, then the next time, and maybe they really want to be independent too, right? They want to carry that plate of food to the table because that makes them feel like that big grown-up child, right? Maybe tomorrow they fill their plate at the counter and you carry it to the table. That's another natural consequence. No, I want to carry it. I won't carry it, mommy. I want to carry it. Yeah, there'll be other opportunities another day. Right now, I'm carrying your plate to the table today. So that's another natural consequence that can happen. There will be other times, but for the rest of this week, mama's going to carry your plate, right? So if that's the kind of scenario that you're dealing with.
It can be so simple, but sometimes it's like unlearning what we were raised with, because it turns into it that can turn into a punishment. I'm gonna it's the wording, right? It's the way you say it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that thin line aspect, because it can be mama's gonna have to remember yesterday how your plate fell. So mama's gonna have to bring the plate to the table, but good job picking out your food. And you can sit at the table and have it after I transport it.
Yeah. So it's tone of voice is a big one, right? Can you give us a tone of voice in that same scenario where you would actually be punishing by carrying
No,
their
mom,
plate?
I have to take it to the table. It fell, yes, you dropped it yesterday, so I'm taking it to the table today.
Okay, great. So the key word there is you dropped it. You
Mm-hmm.
dropped your plate yesterday. I'm not going to deal with that mess again today. I'm carrying your plate.
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely shifting over into the punishment zone. The other way is yesterday the plate got dropped by accident. So today I feel more comfortable carrying the plate. If you're ready tomorrow to walk to the table with your full plate, you could try again. So remember always using I statements rather than you. You dropped your plate, or using a description of what happened. The plate got dropped yesterday.
And can I just say that's a great tool when communicating with your spouse as well?
Yes, it is. I statements with your girlfriends, with your parents, with whomever, all across the board. I
Yes,
statements are the way to go.
no use.
That's right. Um, Now, if a natural consequence doesn't present itself easily, then don't push for one. Don't rack your brain and try to find one. because you will probably end up tipping over into the punishment zone. Sometimes, especially for younger children, just shifting the focus can help. Distracting a little bit can help. You want to avoid going head to head with your child, and you can try problem solving, especially with older, more verbal children. If you do, just to touch back on, if you do have a child that has a lot of these kinds of disruptive behaviors, like almost feels like almost doing it on purpose. Now you want to be careful, because a lot of parents think that their child is acting out because they're just being bad. I don't even use the term that a child's being bad, but a lot of parents understand that language. What we need to remember is that disruptive behavior is a signal for a need for reconnection. Now, that plate might have dropped because they were hurrying and you had asked them not to. It might have dropped because they were overexcited about what was going on in the room. There's all these people here and I'm visiting and it's all exciting. It might have dropped because the child is a bit overtired, or because they're distracted by maybe something upsetting happened in their world. We don't know. If something upsetting happens, when something upsetting happens to you, and you make a silly mistake, or you are clumsy, or you're hurrying to get somewhere and you almost trip over your purse, all those things that happen, they're natural, they're normal. So when we attack and blame and punish, then that just all it really does is start hacking away at a child's self-esteem and their self-confidence.
Yeah.
Right. So have you got another example that you can give us from your life?
Play-Doh.
Okay. Play-Doh. Tell us.
The Play-Doh.
Play-Doh is being well used, I take it.
Yes.
All right. What's the problem?
So sometimes she usually gets distracted by another toy, and after we're done with the Play-Doh, we get too excited and the Play-Doh does not get put back. And so
into its airtight containers.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Okay.
So I used to resort to a punishment, and the punishment was that the Play-Doh ends up in the garbage. But that has backlashed on me. And when she does not want to clean, she says, oh, it can go in the garbage. And she'll bring the broom and the dustpan and she'll say, we can sweep it into the garbage. And then I'm like, wait, no.
Oh my gosh, that's classic. That's a fabulous example. Okay. At the very beginning, you said, she gets distracted by a new toy, a different something to play with.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is that you mamas, you need to be watching with the eyes in all the sides of your head, the back of your head, the side of your head. You need to be always observing. I think I might have shared this once before on the podcast, that one of my first jobs in early childhood education was in an under 3 center. We had 14 2-year-olds, y'all. 14 in one room. It was a big room. And part of my job as a supervisor in a daycare of toddlers was to circumvent a problem happening, or see something that before it became a problem. So, number one, the best thing is to notice as a child's interest is waning. And if you can't catch it at that moment, as soon as you see that interest for the new something, oh, looks like it's time to clean up the Play-Doh, clean up the Play-Doh, clean up the Play-Doh, right? Like right away. You want to bring in that playful, let's get this job done. Now, given that Play-Doh is something that some children will play with for a long time, and you get to actually get a few things done, or you get to sit for a moment and, oh, goodness me, read a article in a magazine. I don't know. Like you get to breathe because your toddler is busy doing something, or maybe you're feeding your younger child. You're not always going to be watching. I get that. You're
Yeah.
not being paid like I was to keep your eagle eye on them every moment.
Yeah.
So, what's another natural kind of consequence that might happen if the Play-Doh is being left to dry out and get ruined and then it has to go in the garbage? Not only is that a consequence for your daughter, but it's a consequence for you
Oh, yeah.
because it's a great activity for her. It keeps her occupied and it's going to cost you money whether you buy Play-Doh or you buy the ingredients to make Play-Doh. It's going to cost you time and money. So it's a consequence for you too that you're not really, and it's waste. We also
Yeah.
don't want to teach our children that it's okay just to throw this in the garbage because you don't want to bother cleaning it up.
Exactly.
That's not a great. Okay, so do you have any other ideas? Have you tried any other consequences that?
I've tried noticing, and when I am able and I do catch her shifting into a new, she is willingly able to put it away if I
Yes,
catch her in a good
great.
one. So that one does work.
The other one that comes to my mind is the Play-Doh has to go away for a few days. Until I know that you're going to try again and I can trust you to do this. Now, you also have to be careful that you are not, saying go play with your Play-Doh and it is something that you need her to do so that you can get the time you need to do whatever else you're doing. Um so I'm feeling tired of dealing with worrying about the Play-Doh drying out. So the Play-Doh's going to go away for a week. And if you would like to play with the Play-Doh again in a week's time, we could try again. But I'm going to need to know that you're committed to putting the Play-Doh away so that it doesn't dry out because it's really important to me. And I know how important your Play-Doh is to you. So I'm willing to work with you on that in a week's time.
Yeah, and I think even just explaining that to our kids, I think sometimes, like age and stage, sometimes we think that they don't understand us as much as they
Mm,
actually do. So being able to express that and say that to our kids is perfectly fine as long as
yes.
it's age and stage. But I want to say that a lot of the times as moms, we doubt that our kids can understand what we're actually saying.
That's an excellent point. And that makes me want to have somebody who's a speech person come on the podcast because I know that children who can understand way huge percentage more in what they can hear, they can understand than what they can actually verbalize. The
Mm-hmm.
hearing and understanding comes way before the ability to to speak things. There's a lot of muscle control around the mouth and the throat and everything that goes, as well as the brain development that goes into speaking. So, yes, they can totally understand. And consequences, a big part of consequences actually does very briefly describe what the problem is and describe what the solution is that's going to happen, AKA the consequence. And again, it's not, I'm putting your Play-Doh away now because you won't put it, it's like, all right, Play-Doh's going to go away for a week. It's okay. We got some more time to play with it later. Now, just to leave off, I want to share with you some words that I think can be really helpful. If you don't, put that Play-Doh away before it dries out, ... Those three words, if you feel them coming out of your mouth, if you hear them coming out of your mouth, notice and stop, because if you don't, creates a threat and leads to some kind of punishment. So instead, try this. When ... When the Play-Doh is put away, then that water table is waiting for you. So when creates an opportunity.
I love that. I love the opportunity that
Mm-hmm.
when opens up for our kids.
Yes. When this happens, when this food gets cleaned up off the floor, we can get you some more food. When this milk gets cleaned up off the table, we can start our dinner, right? I hope that clarifies a bit and helps you figure out when you're leaning over that line into punishment and when you want to keep yourself in the zone of natural consequences. We love you.
Wow, everything that Amma said, I definitely felt as a kid when I was being punished. And knowing that and understanding that helps deter me from being a parent that's going to be punitive and punishing my kid, because I would never want to make her feel the way I felt when I was being punished. And I mean, I survived, I came out fine, but it's not a good feeling, and it definitely made me feel small. And I want to empower my kid, and learning how consequences can help me do that. I am not going to punish. So to share with you my gems from this episode, number 1 was just simply alone, learning that punishment really is shaming, blaming, and attacking your kid's character. I would not want to do that to my kid. I would not want to make her feel like that, or them, because I have to. Number 2 is that when you are using punishments, there is no solution. We think that we want to punish so that we can teach them something, and they're really not learning anything, because usually the punishment has nothing to do with the behavior. So just unlearning that we have to punish to teach them a lesson. Number 3 is that we can make them a part of making amends, and that will make them feel accountable. That will be empowering to them. And lastly is changing it from, if you don't pick up that mess right now, then blah, blah, blah. And using when to allow for opportunities, which is also very empowering to our kids. Saying, when you pick up all those toys, then we can go into the bath. Allowing more opportunities and focusing on the positive is going to help a lot more than going to the negative if you don't, and just being punitive and punishing. So thank you, mamas, for joining us in this week's conversation, and we hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.
Hey, Mama.
Thank you for being here with us.
Okay, how cute was that? Thanks for being here with us. Hit subscribe to get notified.
And hey, did you get anything out of this episode? I know I did. Show some love and send it to your mama friends to bless their day too.
And before you run and change that diaper, take 5 seconds and leave us a review saying how much you love us. You'll be helping other mamas find us. Did you know that? And hopefully find answers to the questions that are keeping them awake at night.
And if you screenshot your review and DM it to us, you will be entered to win a 1-hour coaching call at a discounted price with Lisa.
I can't wait to chat with you. Come hang out with us in our Facebook group or on Instagram. Just click the links in the show notes, and you can direct message us anytime. We would love to chat with you.
We also have a buy me a coffee option for a fun way that you can support this podcast for just as much as you care to give. Just click the show support link in our show notes. Thank you. See you next week.